Welcome to the world of magic, fairy tales, and whatnot. Just kidding, it's not that cheesy. Dahlia Rossetti, a young woman, gets a fresh start in a magical world after her sudden death, and she's not wasting a moment. A nerd at crafting magical tools, Dahlia dreams of living life on her own terms, no strings attached. But things don't always go smoothly. After a messy breakup and a few unexpected twists, she decides to focus on her craft and her freedom. Along the way, she meets Wolfred, a kind and a teeny tiny bit mysterious knight who becomes her partner in crime for adventures. Overall, this story is all good vibes and easygoing, so chill back and relax. Before we jump into the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell for more updates in the future. If you enjoy this video, don't forget to hit that thumbs up as well. Let's begin. Inside a room, a tired girl is working at her computer. Not long after, she loses consciousness, feeling the touch of her desk as her last memory. She regrets not achieving her goals and wishes to explore life if there's another chance. Then, she dies. The girl is reincarnated as a little girl with a red hair named Dahlia. One day, Dahlia asks her father about his work. He explains that he's making a magical device which is used for everyday tasks. These devices, powered by magic stones like fire stones, water stones, or wind stones, can light rooms, cool or warm spaces, and clean efficiently. Dahlia learns that while only a few people can use magic, anyone can use magical devices. Her father shows her a device that creates butterflies when activated. Dahlia loves it and asks if she can make magical devices too. Her father tells her she can, but she needs to study and grow first. Later, Dahlia shows her drawings to her friend Irma, who is impressed. Irma visits Dahlia's father, who asks them to play outside so he can work. Dahlia wants to read a monster guide with her father, but Irma convinces her to leave. While Dahlia and Irma play in the garden, her father looks at her drawings, calling her ahead of her time. Sophia, another adult, warns him not to touch Dahlia's things without permission since they are important to her. In the garden, Irma asks Dahlia about becoming a magical craftsman. Dahlia says she is determined and wants to make a refrigerator someday. Irma jokes about wanting something new, mentioning her difficulty drying her hair. Inspired, Dahlia comes up with an idea for a magical hairdryer using a firestone and windstone to create warm air. She missed the opportunity to drop Willem Dafoe's iconic line, "I'm something of a scientist myself."
Not everyone is a clown like you, dude.
Dahlia rushes to her father with her design, and he praises her idea, but tells her she needs more experience before making it. That evening, Dahlia's father talks with his friend Orlando about her talent. Orlando warns him that children might experiment with dangerous things. The father insists Dahlia is careful and will become a great magical craftsman. Meanwhile, Dahlia sneaks to her room with her materials to try making a magical device. Her father checks on Sophia, who assures him that Dahlia played outside and is now in her room. Suddenly, Dahlia screams, and her father finds her room on fire. He quickly saves her and uses a magical device to put out the flames. Dahlia accidentally causes a fire while trying to secretly create a magical device using magic stones. Her father finds her crying and tells her she must not use magic stones without him. She apologizes, explaining she wanted to make a magical hairdryer but failed. He understands but warns her about the dangers of creating magical devices without proper knowledge. Reassuring her, he promises they will work together to create devices safely. Dahlia is deeply moved and hugs her father, apologizing again. Later, they start designing the hairdryer together. Her father explains that the current fire magic device isn't suitable for drying hair, but says the idea is promising. He suggests using a magic circle to control the energy for warm air. Dahlia adds that the device should also produce cool air. Her father agrees and proposes adjusting the power of the wind magic stone to control the speed and strength of the wind. They work hard together and finally complete the device. Dahlia tests it after her bath and feels delighted with how well it works. Her father confirms there are no issues with the magic stones or circles. They enjoy a drink together, feeling proud of their accomplishment. Sophia arrives and notices Dahlia asleep. Her father explains they stayed up all night working on the device. Sophia scolds him for allowing a child to stay awake so late. He apologizes and promises it won't happen again, explaining how talented Dahlia is. Sophia admires the hairdryer, impressed by Dahlia's skills. Her father proudly says Dahlia is naturally gifted and will become even more skilled with time. The next morning, Dahlia wakes up with new excitement. She wears her glasses and starts thinking about her next invention. Her father joins her, apologizing for being late because he met an old friend. He notices her interest in the crystal fairy lamp, but Dahlia says she is not ready to create it yet as she cannot manage consistent magical energy. She believes she needs more training and experience to become a true craftsman. Her father encourages her, telling her she can achieve anything with hard work and dedication. They prepare breakfast together and talk about her new ideas. Dahlia shares that she has many ideas but hasn't planned them all in detail yet. After breakfast, she gets ready to visit her friend Irma. Her father reminds her not to be late and Dahlia rushes off, filled with determination. Though she knows the road ahead will be difficult, she feels inspired by her father's love and guidance. He hopes she will surpass him one day and fulfill her dreams of becoming a magical craftsman who brings happiness to everyone. Dahlia's journey has just begun, and with her father's support, she is ready to face any challenge to achieve her goal. Dahlia comes home and tells her father about magic lamps shown by Elena. These lamps, used by guards at night, are made with silver firefly wings, and their colors depend on the land they came from. Dahlia notices Tobias, a young man from Orlando Trading Company, helping her father. Tobias asks Dahlia to call him just Tobias and says he's happy to work with them. One rainy night, Ivano visits visits Dahlia and thanks her father for helping him. Dahlia tells him she came to deliver documents for her father. Ivano invites her inside and they drink tea. He praises her father as a talented magic craftsman who created the magic lamps used by many people. Dahlia shares that her father always encourages her to make magical devices that enrich people's lives and bring joy. When the rain stops, Dahlia goes home and sees her father drenched. He explains that he and Tobias tried to outrun the rain but failed. Tobias says their coats help keep them from getting too wet. Dahlia offers to take their clothes to the cleaners and suddenly gets an idea to create a lightweight coat that repels water, which she calls a raincoat. The next morning, Dahlia starts designing the raincoat. She decides to use slime as a material. Tobias is surprised, as he has never heard of slime being used for magic infusion. Dahlia explains her idea to dry slime, turn it into powder, dissolve it in a liquid, and fix it to fabric. She plans to experiment with different types of slime. Dahlia discovers that blue slime powder, however, is water resistant but doesn't cover large areas, while green slime sticks better. She shares these ideas with her friends, who tease her about always talking about slime. Later, Dahlia's father suggests using a mix of solvents instead of just one. Breaking Bad much?
I wonder who's Jesse Pinkman here.
Dahlia experiments with mixing blue and green slime, using magic to fix it to the fabric. The result is successful, and her father praises her work. Tobias reminds them to test the fabric for even application and durability. Dahlia agrees, adding that she wants to ensure it holds up under harsh conditions. She notes that stitching points might weaken the waterproofing, but plans to solve this by adding a different powder to those areas. 2 days later, Dahlia officially registers her invention, waterproof fabric and raincoats made from it. She imagines orders coming in and feels proud of her creation. When Dahlia and Tobias return home, Dahlia thanks Tobias for his help. Tobias says her intelligence, creativity, and hard work made the invention possible. He adds that they need to inform their teacher about registering the invention successfully. An hour later, there is a knock at the door. Dahlia learns that many orders for the raincoats have already come in. The demand is overwhelming, especially with winter approaching. The demand for Dahlia's waterproof fabric grows rapidly, not just for raincoats, but also for carriage covers. The fabric's popularity leads to an increase in slime hunting. One evening, Dahlia's father talks with Orlando, the head of Orlando Trading Company, at a cafe. He thanks Orlando for his help, noting that without him, they would have faced difficulties. Orlando praises Dahlia's talent, but warns her father that her intelligence could unintentionally lead to dangerous inventions. He also expresses his hope for Dahlia and Tobias to marry, saying his company helps protect her. Dahlia's father agrees, saying Tobias has a bright future and suggests finalizing their engagement soon as he feels his health declining. Later, Theo, Tobias's father, discusses the engagement with Dahlia and her parents. They decide to submit the engagement document to the trade guild. Dahlia and Tobias agree, believing they make a great team. Dahlia tells her friend about her engagement, saying Tobias is hardworking and respectful, which is important to her. At home, Dahlia recalls her father asking her what magical devices she wants to make, which inspires her to jot down a new idea. Tobias calls, reminding her their teacher wants to see her. He advises her to wear light makeup and simpler glasses frames, emphasizing the importance of representing the Rossetti name. Dahlia agrees, appreciating his advice. During a meal together, Dahlia mentions how kindly everyone at Orlando Trading Company treats her. Tobias says his family admires her innovations, which makes her happy. Suddenly, an exhausted man from the company informs them that the president has collapsed. They rush to the company, where employees are worried about managing operations without him. Dahlia steps forward, organizes the staff, and helps stabilize the situation. Later, Dahlia returns home, and her father notices the improvement at the company. When she thanks him for his guidance, he brushes it off, but reflects on her enthusiasm when creating the raincoat. The next morning, Dahlia's father observes the weather and recalls happy memories with her. His assistant remarks on how much Dahlia loves him. Suddenly, he collapses, wondering aloud what magical device Dahlia will create next. News reaches Dahlia that her father has collapsed at the trade guild. She rushes to him, thinking of their cherished memories together. Despite her hopes, he passes away. Heartbroken, Dahlia cries deeply for her father. They bury him in the cemetery, and while everyone leaves, Dahlia stays at his grave, mourning the man she loved so dearly. Dahlia meets Tobias and apologizes for being late. Tobias asks about the marriage papers, and Dahlia says she hasn't signed them yet. Tobias stops her and says he wants to break off the engagement because he has found his true love, Amelia Tellini, a receptionist at Orlando Trading Company. Dahlia agrees to end the engagement and leaves. Later, Dahlia talks to her friends Irma and Marcella, who are angry because Tobias is living in Dahlia's house with Amelia, the woman he cheated on her with. They call Tobias despicable, as he was engaged to Dahlia for over 2 years before ending it like this. Irma says she's glad Dahlia didn't marry him. Dahlia thanks her friends for their support, and they encourage her to eat and enjoy their time together. Dahlia decides to officially break off the engagement at the trade union and move her belongings out of the house. Marcella offers to help and asks for the house key to assist with moving furniture. Dahlia visits Lucia to share the news about breaking off the engagement. Lucia says she expected it since Dahlia never spoke fondly of Tobias and always talked about magical devices. She advises Dahlia to find someone better in the future, but Dahlia says she wants to focus on her work for now. After discussing enchanted raincoats, Dahlia leaves for her meeting at the trade union. At the trade union, Dahlia and Tobias complete the procedures to break off their engagement. The union manager says they will cancel the engagement contract and settle joint accounts. Ivano, the contract manager, manager, and Dominic, the public notary, oversee the process. Tobias must pay Dahlia 12 gold pieces as compensation and 50 gold pieces to buy out the house registered in both their names. Tobias pays 28 gold pieces, claiming it is all he has, and asks Dahlia for more time to pay the rest. Dahlia decides to change the property deed only after Tobias pays the full amount. Tobias becomes upset as he had told Amelia they could move in immediately. Dominic reassures him that the trade union can lend him the money. The good old American loan system.
This is Japan, knucklehead.
Thanks for the clarification, Captain Obvious. Tobias thanks them and signs the contract. Afterward, Dahlia gives the documents to Ivano, who asks if Tobias had always behaved this way. Dahlia says she had never seen him act like this before. Gabriella, the union's vice president, advises Dahlia that breaking off the engagement is a good decision. Some young people peek into the meeting room out of curiosity, and Ivano jokes about the thin walls. Dahlia says she will likely become a subject of gossip. Later, young helpers assist Dahlia with moving her belongings. Marcella tells her the last box is ready, but asks if there's more to move. Dahlia mentions a bed she bought and opens the door to the room. She is shocked to see the bed in disarray. Marcella notices and assures her they will make Tobias pay for the damage. They also find clothes in the wardrobe, which aren't Tobias's. Marcella gets angry, realizing Tobias and Amelia had used the space carelessly. They call Dominic to record everything officially. Dominic arrives, inspects Dahlia's belongings, and creates a notarized list. Dahlia returns the house key to the trade union and moves her things to the tower. Though she worries it will take time, everything is completed. As Dahlia leaves the house in a carriage, she looks back one last time. Dahlia reflects on the memories she made in her old house, the place where she once planned to get married. In the evening, she gives the house key to Dominic, apologizing for asking him to handle everything. Dominic reassures her, saying he will take care of anything she cannot manage, and reminds her to seek help when needed. He wishes her happiness, and Dahlia thanks him sincerely. Marcella shows Dahlia her belongings from the house and asks her to sign for them. Dahlia thanks him for helping her and smiles when he invites her to dinner. She declines, saying she has food and wants to finish unpacking. Marcella gives her a box from Irma, filled with food Dahlia loves. Dahlia thanks him again and invites him and Irma to visit her once things settle down. Dahlia works hard to organize her new place and feels tired by evening. Resting, she remembers Tobias, her ex-fiancé, who betrayed her. She recalls how their engagement was arranged by her father and reflects on losing both Tobias and her father's support. Dahlia decides not to dwell on the past, thinking maybe it was meant to happen. Surprisingly, she realizes she cannot cry about it. She notices something shiny on the floor, picks it up, and tells herself she will no longer bow her head. Opening the window, she vows to live her life on her own terms, speaking openly about her likes and dislikes. She remembers her father and feels his comforting presence, recalling how he brought laughter to her life. Thinking of her friends, Dahlia feels grateful for the wonderful people around her. Later, Dahlia visits a hairdresser and talks about her failed engagement. The hairdresser assures her she has every right to be angry, but encourages her to move on. Dahlia compares the engagement to picking a watermelon. You never know if it's good until you try it. After her hair is done, Dahlia sees how beautiful she looks and thanks the hairdresser. They enjoy coffee and cake together, chatting about their problems. Dahlia mentions going to the forest to gather materials. The hairdresser advises her to stay safe and not let negative thoughts overwhelm her. Dahlia promises to return before dark and leaves the salon feeling happy. The next morning, Dahlia dresses in men's clothing, wears a hat, and uses a voice-changing device. She gets into a carriage with her equipment and heads to the forest. She admires the beauty of the trees and mountains, appreciating the peace around her. Suddenly, her horse stops, sensing something unusual. Dahlia waits quietly and sees an injured boy emerge, asking for water. She quickly gives him water, and he faints. Noticing a wound on his left shoulder, Dahlia uses medicine to heal him. When he recovers, the boy apologizes and says he will repay her when he returns to the royal capital. Dahlia tells him not to worry and says she was only helping. He introduces himself as Wolfred, a member of the Monster Suppression Knights, and asks her to call him Wolf. Dahlia introduces herself as an ordinary citizen. Wolf asks her to accompany him to the capital, and she agrees. She notices his eyes are hurting from monster blood, and they head to a nearby river so he can wash it out. In the carriage, Wolf admires the waterproof fabric on the seat, and Dahlia explains its uses, including raincoats and tents. They discuss ways to improve it, and Dahlia suggests using new materials. At the river, Wolf washes off the blood, and Dahlia gives him a coat that belonged to her father while his clothes dry. She prepares food, and they eat together. Wolf compliments her cooking and tells her his eye pain has gone, but his vision isn't fully restored. Dahlia advises him to see a doctor. She notices his red armor and asks if he is a crimson shield. Wolf explains that the armor attracts monsters, making it suitable for leading the first attack in dangerous battles. He shares the risks of his role and lightens the mood with a joke, noticing Dahlia's sadness. Wolf asks if Dahlia likes magical devices. She says she loves making them, as it is her livelihood. They discuss magical knives, which commonly have anti-rust or permanent sharpness enchantments. Wolf says such enchantments would be useful for swords, as even his magically durable sword broke. He shares his admiration for magical swords, describing a flame sword at the Trade Guild and the legendary Ash Hand, a sword that turns anything it pierces to ashes but burns anyone unworthy. He also mentions two famous magical swords in the castle that no one can wield due to their strict requirements for nobility or duty. Are we talking about Thor's hammer here?
You really need to stop glazing marble everywhere.
Wolf regrets not having the social standing to show Dahlia the swords, but she appreciates hearing about them. Dahlia thanks him, saying the knowledge will help her with her future magical device creations. Wolfred and Dahlia continue their journey to the royal capital. Dahlia suggests Wolf rest during the trip. They drink sodas, which Wolf enjoys, as heavy rain starts falling. When they arrive at the capital, Wolf gets out of the carriage. Dahlia offers him her father's coat, made of sand lizard skin, to protect him from the rain. Wolf thanks her sincerely, saying she saved his life and asks for her address so he can repair. Dahlia tells him not to worry, calling it her way of supporting the monster suppression knights. They smile and say goodbye. Dahlia returns home, reflects on the day, and feels happy to have helped someone. She wonders if she will meet Wolf again and hopes his eye heals well. Later, Dahlia meets Ivano to discuss a contract issue about a small magical device registered under Tobias's name. Dahlia learns Tobias falsely claimed she agreed to this. The trade guild's temporary leader offers to file a lawsuit against Tobias for fraud, but Dahlia suggests resolving it without penalties for Orlando Trading Company or the craftsman involved. Dahlia confronts Tobias at his house. Tobias apologizes, calling this situation a misunderstanding. He explains that he registered the device under his name, believing all their inventions should be unified for their planned partnership after marriage. Dahlia realizes he intended to claim her future magical devices under his name, or both names, for their joint company. She tells him inventors must engrave their names on devices and take responsibility, as her father taught her. She criticizes Tobias for registering it only under his name, which excluded her from accountability if issues arose. Tobias tries to justify his actions, offering to buy the rights to the stove at any price. Dahlia refuses, pointing out his dishonesty and mentioning she could sue him if needed. Tobias dismisses the threat, thinking she won't act on it. Dahlia, speaking as a magical artisan, tells him that his actions in changing the registration are pathetic, especially since he was her father's senior student. Tobias realizes that Dahlia has no intention of selling him the rights to the stove, even if it means losing business with Orlando Trading Company. As Dahlia gets up to leave, she tells Tobias to submit the proper paperwork to the guild before the end of the day. Just then, Amelia approaches Tobias to apologize, but Tobias tells her it's not her fault and admits he was only a fellow student to her. Meanwhile, Dahlia discusses the situation at the guild with an adventurer. She explains that Orlando Trading Company will no longer do business with her and hopes the adventurer can introduce her to a new partner. The adventurer asks if Tobias is responsible, and Dahlia confirms it, saying the order came directly from Orlando. The adventurer offers to bring the matter to the deputy leader. Marcella arrives and suggests Dahlia start her own company, Rossetti, so she can work independently. Dahlia hesitates, saying she hasn't prepared for the responsibilities and is unsure about profits as a new magical artisan. The adventurer and Marcella reassure her, mentioning her success with waterproof fabric and the opportunities to buy rare materials like dragon scales and griffin parts. Gabriella joins them and guides Dahlia to prepare for the company's contract. In the meeting room, Gabriella advises Dahlia on presenting herself professionally as a company president. They visit a clothing store where Gabriella helps Dahlia choose more formal outfits. Gabriella also recommends improving Dahlia's appearance with light makeup and suggests checking her eyes at the temple to avoid relying on glasses. Dahlia thanks Gabriella, who explains she is repaying a debt to Carlo, Dahlia's father. Gabriella reveals that Carlo introduced her to her husband and had once asked her to help Dahlia if needed. Gabriella shares how many people relied on Carlo for advice, surprising Dahlia, who thought her father spent his time wandering and drinking. Dahlia feels proud to learn about her father's kindness. Elsewhere, Wolfred reports to his manager, saying he has completed his wyvern mission. The manager tells him he has earned the title of Dragon Slayer for delivering the final blow. Wolfred modestly explains the unit had already weakened the wyvern. The manager insists on giving him the title and offers to recommend him to the royal guard, but Wolfred declines, preferring to avoid the spotlight. He requests a letter of introduction to thank the person who saved him with the potion. The manager initially hesitates, but eventually agrees and gives him the letter. Wolfred takes the letter and leaves. Dahlia takes off her glasses, considering visiting the church to restore her sight, though it is expensive. Wolf then approaches her, identifying her as a member of Mr. Dolly's family by her eye color, mannerisms, and scent. He asks to sit with her, explaining that he was looking for her at the trade guild to return the coat and repay her for the potion. He invites her to visit his house, and Dahlia agrees. They order cold drinks, and he compliments her beauty, though Dahlia advises against excessive compliments to strangers. When he asks why she was disguised as a man, Dahlia explains it was for safety in the forest. As they talk, Dahlia asks about his eyes, and he says his vision is still unclear. He mentions the meat they are eating is from scarlet nymphs, which are becoming common. They laugh together as they order more drinks. Wolf asks if her father scolded her for giving him the coat, and Dahlia shares that her father has passed away. Wolf apologizes and promises to wash and return the coat. Dahlia explains she enhanced the coat's lining with wyvern material to make it sturdier. Dahlia introduces herself as a magical artisan and mentions inventing waterproof fabric. She shares her plans to create a lighter fabric with better ventilation. As Wolf goes to order more drinks, Amelia and Tobias arrive. Amelia wants to talk to Dahlia about their engagement, but Tobias discourages her. Wolf returns and invites Dahlia to his house again, and they leave together. Walking away, Dahlia thanks Wolf for rescuing her from the awkward situation. Wolf apologizes, saying he only spoke the truth. Dahlia explains that that Tobias was her ex-fiancé, an engagement arranged by her father without her consent, which ended when Tobias found someone else. Wolf admits he doesn't understand true love and expresses frustration that Tobias interrupted their meal. They decide to continue their conversation at a restaurant. At the table, Wolf places an anti-eavesdropping device and explains he values privacy despite being the youngest son of an earl. Dahlia, unfamiliar with noble etiquette, asks for a simple way to speak comfortably. Dahlia asks Wolf how his anti-eavesdropping device works. He explains it cancels out sounds using other sounds and asks if she makes similar devices. Dahlia says such devices are created by wizards, while she focuses on everyday magical devices. Wolf stares at her, saying she looks happy while talking about magical devices. Embarrassed, Dahlia tells him his behavior has changed, surprising her. Wolf smiles, tells her he admires her, and is thankful to have met her. They eat together, and Wolf asks about combining magic on devices. Dahlia explains that usually only one type of magic is applied per device, but layering is possible with multiple devices. Wolf shares his idea of adding cleaning, strengthening, and weight reduction magic to a sword. Dahlia suggests treating the blade, guard, and sheath separately with different magic before reassembling them. Excited, Wolf says this could create a magical sword to benefit his unit. He expresses his love for magical swords, calling them inspiring and full of dreams. Dahlia agrees, saying she enjoys thinking about and working with magical devices. Wolf asks if he can call her Dahlia and if she can call him Wolf. She agrees, adding she'll use his first name when they're alone. Wolf happily asks if he can bring a sword to try her idea, and Dahlia suggests starting with a cheap short sword. That evening, Wolf escorts Dahlia home to protect her from bandits. She shows him her house, the Green Tower, built with stones from the demolished royal palace wall. Wolf gives her money for materials, insisting she accept it. He asks if he can return the day after tomorrow to take her to a noble district store that sells magical devices. Dahlia agrees, and they say goodbye. The next day, Dahlia dreams of a lady commenting on her plans with Wolf. Later, Wolf arrives at her house earlier than planned. He returns her father's coat, prompting Dahlia to thank him and says that she is glad he could use it. Later, Dahlia and Wolf go to a magical device shop where many girls admire Wolf along the way. Inside, Dahlia is amazed by the devices. Wolf introduces her to the shop owner, Oswald, a baron and magical craftsman. Dahlia recognizes Oswald as the inventor of the cold air delivery device, which has been around since her childhood. Oswald greets Wolf and recognizes Dahlia as Carlo's daughter. He shares that Carlo was his friend from baron meetings. Wolf points out an anti-cleaning device disguised as cufflinks. Dahlia examines it and explains it combines charms like antitoxin, anti-petrification, and anti-conformer. They discuss a crystal fairy lamp, and Dahlia recalls her father enchanting her window with similar magic, though it was very costly. Oswald enjoys the conversation so much that he is late for an appointment. Later, Oswald shows anklets with protective charms to a client. Before Dahlia leaves, Oswald gives her a golden card, explaining it grants her access to his shop anytime.
Dang, VIP access? My girl is getting that importance she deserves.
You misspelled attention-seeking? Oswald then shares a story about Carlo, who once advised him when his wife left him with their money. During a visit to the Green Tower, Oswald met Dahlia as a child, inspiring him to invent the cold air delivery device after Carlo mentioned her heat rashes. The invention helped Oswald rebuild his shop. He regrets not spending more time with Carlo and thanks Dahlia for visiting. Dahlia tells Oswald her father loved the cold air device and feels touched by the story. Oswald becomes emotional, expressing his gratitude to Carlo and asking Dahlia to visit his shop again. Outside, Dahlia notices her father's handwriting on the golden card and recalls fond memories of him, like how he often left his coat wherever he took it off and never noticed shined shoes. Overwhelmed, she begins to cry, feeling it is unfair to see his good side more clearly after his death. Wolf gently comforts her, putting a hood over her head to calm her down. Dahlia apologizes to Wolfred for causing him trouble, but he reassures her it's no problem. She reflects on hearing stories about her father in the store, even though it has been nearly a year since his passing. Wolf asks if he can accompany her to the store again in the future, worrying that Oswald, a wealthy nobleman with 2 wives, might try to charm her into becoming his 3rd wife. Dahlia is shocked and insists it's impossible. They head to a food stall for lunch, where Wolf orders food and gives Dahlia a ring that absorbs poison, explaining it will protect her. He mentions his own body is resistant to poison and that he also wears an anklet for extra safety. As they enjoy their meal, Dahlia gets up to get more drinks. After waiting, Wolf goes to check on her and finds a man trying to drag her away. Dahlia uses the freezing magic in her bracelet to stop the man and apologizes to the restaurant owner. The owner apologizes instead and offers her free drinks, asking her to return with her beloved. Wolf apologizes for not accompanying her, but Dahlia reassures him she was testing her bracelet's power. She suggests freezing magic could be useful on swords, and Wolf offers to buy her a short sword to try. Dahlia explains that her father never took her to weapon shops because he was very protective. She shares that she was once burned by black slime while working on the waterproof fabric. Her father rushed her to the emergency room where she recovered after costly treatment. Wolf believes her father hid the severity of the injury to protect her and asks her not to take such risks again. In the evening, Dahlia serves a delicious meal to thank Wolf for the day. Wolf, happy with the food, insists on washing the dishes, saying he is used to helping from his army days. Dahlia offers him alcohol, but he declines, saying it could lead to improper behavior since they are alone. She jokes about his response and serves him hibiscus juice instead. As they talk, talk, Wolf shares stories of friendships ruined by women falsely accusing him of pursuing them. He believes his eyes attract unwanted attention and worries about it. Dahlia comforts him, offering to create magical glasses to change his eye color using fairy crystal material. Wolf recognizes it as the same crystal from the store and agrees to the experiment, knowing it might fail. He asks to watch her work, and Dahlia agrees. As she works, Dahlia carefully places materials on the lenses, using her father's advice to talk to the materials, asking them where they want to go. Dahlia's father believed magical materials and devices sometimes guide artisans during their creation process. Returning to the present, Dahlia focuses deeply on making the glasses, asking the fairies for their wish. The fairies reply that they want to protect Wolfred's eyes for his own good. When they ask why Dahlia wants to hide his eyes, she explains she wants to protect him from harm and help him smile. The fairies agree to help if Dahlia takes them to the rainbow. As Dahlia works, sweat forms on her face. Wolfred suggests a break, but she hushes him, determined to finish. After completing both lenses, she hands the glasses to Wolfred. He tries them on and sees clearly, noticing his eye color is now different. Dahlia apologizes for her father's habits rubbing off on her and asks if he thinks he can walk around without a hood now. Wolfred smiles, saying he can. He thanks her deeply, saying the glasses are worth any price. Dahlia insists they are just a prototype made from leftover materials and explains the cost of making a new pair, including the expensive fairy crystal. Wolfred promises to save up, but Dahlia reassures him and asks if he wants a second pair. She explains that making devices is easier the second time, although working on the glasses drained her magical energy. The next morning, Wolfred walks through the capital wearing his new glasses. He reflects on his childhood, remembering his mother's sacrifice to protect him and her friends. Growing up in an unstable environment, he found solace in joining the monster suppression forces, where social status mattered less. Monster suppression forces reminds me of the Unsullied from Game of Thrones.
Bro, they didn't even have their schlongs.
Despite his good life now, he wonders if a magical sword could have saved his mother. Thinking about Dahlia, he admires her focus and dedication. He sees her as the most beautiful person he has met, not out of love, but because of her strong character and kindness. He wants to remain close friends, sharing mutual respect and companionship. Meanwhile, Orlando confronts Tobias about the problems he caused. Orlando criticizes Tobias's choice in Amelia, revealing her family severed ties with her. He warns Tobias that getting involved with Amelia's background could harm their noble connections. Tobias protests, saying he doesn't care about her past. Orlando reminds Tobias that their father wanted him to marry Dahlia to support her as a magical craftswoman and to help him grow as a craftsman. Tobias realizes he was intended to be a supportive partner for Dahlia, not the central figure in their relationship. Feeling betrayed, Tobias asks why no one told him this. Orlando explains that Tobias would never have agreed to the marriage if he had known. Back at her workshop, Dahlia reflects on her work as a magical craftswoman. She recalls how some people mock her for not being able to cast spells like mages or create rare items like alchemists. Her process involves trial and error, and even if her devices succeed, there's no guarantee people will want them. Despite the challenges, Dahlia finds fulfillment in seeing her inventions help others and bring smiles to their faces. She takes pride in her work and vows to continue creating magical devices for the rest of her life.
Dahlia tests a crack in ribbon and works on repairing her fridge, but it malfunctions and freezes everything inside. Meanwhile, Wolfred discusses a plan with his commander to stop goblins attacking a village. He volunteers to lead a diversion, allowing his unit to defeat the goblins quickly. His bravery impresses the commander, who decides to promote him. That night, Wolfred successfully lures and defeats the goblins. The next morning, he visits Dahlia, bringing a box of food preserved with a magical ice stone. Inside, he notices her fridge, and Dahlia explains it's a prototype she plans to test and sell if it works. Wolfred offers to move the heavy fridge upstairs, saying it feels light to him. As they talk, Dahlia notices the high-quality magical crystal glasses Wolfred brought with the food. When she asks about the cost, Wolfred says they were only 4 gold coins. Dahlia thanks him and insists on treating the glasses as payment for the goggles she gave him. Wolfred prepares and seasons the food, explaining that his experience during campaigns taught him basic cooking. Dahlia shows him a prototype soap foam, mentioning she plans to test it with friends. After eating, Wolfred praises her magical stove for its excellent heat control, saying it could have helped retain his comrades who left due to poor food during campaigns. They laugh when the meat shrinks while cooking. Dahlia teases Wolfred for not eating green peppers, calling it childish. Embarrassed, Wolfred eats them all, then admits they taste good, regretting avoiding them for so long. After the meal, they start crafting a new magic sword. Dahlia asks if durability magic or permanent sharpness magic is better for the blade. Wolfred chooses permanent sharpness, ideal for short swords. Dahlia carefully infuses the blade with magic, then works on the scabbard, blending magic into it without adding a magic stone. She admits she isn't skilled at weight reduction, recalling how her father excelled at it when she watched him as a child. Once finished, Dahlia asks Wolfred to assemble the sword, as she is tired. As Wolfred slides the blade into the scabbard, the sword unexpectedly jumps out of his hands. Surprised, they realize the pieces don't fit together perfectly. They conclude that there might be a deeper reason why others haven't succeeded succeeded in creating such swords before. Dahlia and Wolfred realize the issues with the magic sword may stem from conflicting types of magic or how magic interacts with the materials. They discuss possible solutions and decide to try using black slime powder, a substance resistant to fire, water, and wind. Dahlia coats the sword parts with the powder and asks Wolfred to assemble them again. This time the pieces fit perfectly, and they successfully create the magic dagger. The dagger looks dark and powerful, resembling something a servant of the Demon King might wield. Wolfred notes that it functions well, but when he holds it, his glove dissolves from the intense magic. Dahlia warns that mishandling it could cause severe harm. To test the dagger, they place a piece of meat on it, and the meat withers instantly. Wolfred suggests using strong gloves to handle the weapon, but Dahlia insists they seal it in a box to contain the magic and give it to a specialist for disposal. Wolfred then persuades her to keep it as a souvenir. Later, they drink juice together, and Wolfred tells Dahlia he will visit after his next campaign. He explains they will hunt frogs in the swamp, where the heat and dampness often lead to fungal infections.
I don't think my guy understands how dates work.
I doubt you do either. Dahlia suggests using drying magic, but Wolfred explains that they use hardening magic instead due to the uncertain terrain. Before Wolfred leaves, Dahlia gives him a bag of socks and undergarments infused with drying and wind magic. She asks for a report on how well they work instead of payment. Wolfred agrees, promising to send her feedback. 3 weeks later, Wolfred speaks with Althea, who asks if anything interesting has happened. Wolfred shares that he met a wonderful woman and stayed up talking with her until dawn. Althea, surprised, says he is lucky to have found such a good friend, but wonders privately if he realizes he is on the brink of strong feelings, which she calls a fever. The scene shifts to Wolfred in the forest, recalling how Dahlia had explained the socks and undergarments she gave him. The socks are 5-toed and infused with drying magic to prevent sweat and fungus. The undergarments are made with green slime powder and infused with wind magic for comfort. Dahlia had originally designed them for her father, who disliked summer heat in socks, but she finished the prototypes after his passing. She hoped Wolfred could use them to avoid fungal infections during his campaign. In the present, Wolfred's friend notices the socks and asks about them. Wolfred explains their design and functionality, and his friend tries them on, thrilled that his feet no longer sweat. Other soldiers overhear and express interest in the socks, even joking about foot fungus and aging. The commander asks where they can buy the socks, and Wolfred explains they are prototypes, but offers to share more. His friend Randolph also requests a pair, and the soldiers eagerly discuss how helpful they are. Wolfred feels overjoyed that Dahlia's creation is so well received. He starts to wonder if she might produce the socks on a larger scale, potentially becoming one of the richest people in town.
Hey guys, I know I'm interrupting the video, but I'm just here to remind you that most of you guys watching this video are not actually subscribed to the channel. So if you're enjoying this video so far, make sure you click that subscribe button and hit the notification bell for more updates in the future. Now let's get straight back into the video.
Wolfred and his army fight wild, savage frogs in a tough 4-hour battle. At night, the weather turns bitterly cold, and the soldiers gather around Wolfred, discussing their concerns about foot fungus. They praise the socks Wolfred distributed, saying they don't slip, prevent rashes, and are very effective. Some suggest improving the socks by reinforcing the heels, making them longer to reach the knees, and offering different sizes. Wolfred carefully notes all their feedback to share with Dahlia. The next scene shows Wolfred visiting Dahlia with a request for a large order of socks and drying insoles. Dahlia is surprised, as she only expected a report on the socks. Wolfred hands her detailed feedback from the soldiers, explaining how grateful they are for the socks and their positive effects. He also shares that many soldiers struggle with foot fungus, especially in the heat, and that the socks have been a great help. Dahlia is touched by the praise, but wonders how she can fulfill such a large order. She decides to visit the trade guild for advice, and Wolfred offers to accompany her. Wolfred expresses concern about rumors of a romantic relationship between them due to their close collaboration. Dahlia reassures him that she values their friendship and doesn't care about others' opinions as long as her reputation is intact. However, she adds that she respects his feelings and won't stop him if he prefers to maintain distance. Wolfred admits he values their relationship and agrees to stay close while protecting her reputation.
Okay, I was wrong. My guy clearly got that riz.
Wolfred? More like Rizzled? Okay, I will stop. At the trade guild, Dahlia and Wolfred meet Gabriella Gator, the deputy head. Gabriella tells Dahlia that Wolfred wants to become one of the guarantors for Rossetti Company. Ivano offers to handle the preparations. While Wolfred finalizes paperwork with Dominic, Gabriella privately discusses large-scale production with Dahlia. Dahlia admits she can only infuse 15 to 20 socks with magic daily and worries about handling larger orders. Gabriella advises hiring cobblers to manufacture the insoles, which can then be delivered to the guild. They calculate that one small green slime can produce 5 pairs of socks, requiring 200 slimes to make 1,000 pairs. Gabriella suggests Rossetti Company take a 25% profit share, though others propose 20% considering the workload. Everyone agrees on a fair arrangement. Dahlia reflects on her family's strong relationship with the guild during her father Carlo's time and expresses gratitude for their continued support. Later, Dahlia thanks her friend Lucia, who is surprised to hear about the envoy from the clothing guild and how Dahlia's father nearly fainted. Lucia's mother adds that Dahlia has created the product and even made her the assistant manager on the spot. Dahlia speaks with Lucia, who mentions that her workshop consists of just 5 family members. Lucia asks Dahlia to send some raincoat fabric so she can make cute coats, as she doesn't know when she will find the time. Dahlia agrees and explains that she never expected her invention to grow this much, saying she originally made it just to amuse Carlo. The scene shifts to Wolfred advising Dahlia. He praises her progress, but warns her to be cautious when dealing with nobles. Wolfred explains that her words to Fortunato, where she said she trusted him and left everything to him, could be misunderstood as a declaration of love. Dahlia, upset, says she only meant she trusted his way of working. Wolfred reassures her that he knows she wasn't being improper and promises to help if any issues arise. Dahlia feels sad, realizing she may have been tactless without knowing it. Meanwhile, Ivano apologizes to Gabriella for prioritizing his role as a guarantor for Rossetti Company over the trade guild's interests. He offers his resignation, explaining that he loves being a merchant and wants to follow this path. Gabriella, surprised but understanding, advises him to speak with Dahlia about joining her company. Ivano, however, feels it wouldn't be fair to ask her directly and proceeds with his resignation. Later, Ivano meets Wolfred and asks for his opinion on Dahlia. Wolfred praises her as an incredible magical artisan and a dear friend. Ivano shares that they are standing at the spot where Carlo passed away and reminisces about meeting Carlo. Ivano says he wants to help Dahlia grow Rossetti Company and reveals his resignation from the guild. He asks Wolfred to recommend him to Dahlia. Wolfred agrees on 2 conditions. Ivano must never harm Dahlia or her company intentionally, and Dahlia's safety must always come first. Ivano agrees, and Wolfred gives him a rare gold coin for preparations, asking him not to tell Dahlia. They agree to address each other informally. The scene shifts to Dahlia thanking Gabriella for her help. Gabriella apologizes for recommending Dahlia's foaming bottle prototype to a friend, which caused her workload to increase. Dahlia expresses gratitude, saying it's not a problem. Gabriella informs Dahlia that the president of Orlando Trading Company has requested a meeting to apologize for past events. Dahlia agrees to meet him. Dahlia and Gabriella meet the president, who apologizes and offers 12 gold coins as a token of regret. He asks Dahlia not to sue Tobias over the magical device registration issue and offers to supply materials for her work for 3 years. Dahlia accepts on the condition that he provides fairy crystals immediately. The president agrees and gives Dahlia a female unicorn horn, explaining it can neutralize poison and relieve pain. Dahlia accepts the gift gratefully. Then we are shown Guido speaking to Wolfred. Wolfred and Guido sit together, discussing city matters. Guido mentions that their father was summoned to the royal palace and was upset he couldn't see Wolfred. Guido admits he feels unsure about filling in for their father's responsibilities. Wolfred reassures Guido, saying he doesn't mind stepping in himself when needed. Wolfred shares that he recently became a guarantor for the Rossetti Company and will soon continue his work with the monster suppression forces. Guido is pleased and says their father has offered the family villa and staff to assist Wolfred with anything he needs for Rossetti Company. He also offers water and ice stones, asking Wolfred to let him know if he needs anything else. Guido notes this is the first time Wolfred has sought their father's help and asks if he plans to leave the Scalfarato family. Wolfred admits he wants to become independent someday, but clarifies that his work with Rossetti Company isn't related to that. Guido presses him about leaving the Crimson Shields, but Wolfred says he has no such plans. Frustrated, Guido asks why Wolfred avoids him. Wolfred, annoyed, denies avoiding him and asks why Guido meddles so much. Guido apologizes, admitting he has avoided facing Wolfred because of guilt from their past. Guido recalls a traumatic event where their carriage was attacked by bandits in the forest. He wanted to fight, but stayed with their mother out of fear. Wolfred and his men arrived to fight the bandits, but Lady Vanessa, who fought alongside them, died in the battle. Guido confesses he feels he failed to protect their mother and Vanessa, and he dreams of the knights who died that day. Wolfred reassures him, urging him to honor Vanessa's memory by living well and never thinking of dying to make amends.
Bro needs some lessons from Andrew Tate.
Keep the brain rot away, please! Guido promises to help Wolfred in any way he can, including with work and palace matters. He offers to provide magical materials and encourages Wolfred to talk to their father more often, mentioning their father's monthly visits to Vanessa's grave. Wolfred silently hopes Guido finds peace from his nightmares, reflecting that his own nightmares ended after meeting Dahlia. The scene shifts to Dahlia visiting the Gandolfi workshop, where she meets Fermo. Dahlia shows him a new product she's working on, a soap dispenser that mixes soap and water. Fermo is impressed, noting it could be useful for washing hands and faces in barbershops or as a toy for children. Dahlia adds that testers found it especially helpful for shaving facial hair. Fermo then highlights the product's versatility. In response, Dahlia adds that those who tested it said it was particularly helpful for shaving facial hair. Fermo decides to try Dahlia's soap dispenser, with Ivano assisting him. A lady suggests Fermo tidy his appearance while testing it. Pleased with the dispenser, Fermo agrees it could be useful for barbershops, children, and the elderly. Dahlia gives him documentation with the product specifications, and Fermo suggests speeding up production. The lady mentions they need over 1,500 bottles per month and offers 2 gold coins and 3 large silver coins for every 200 bottles. Fermo agrees, but notes the dispenser's head is too small for men's faces and suggests making larger heads for children and public use. Fermo adds that this version doesn't align with the joint development mentioned in the letter. Dahlia responds that she'd like to co-develop an improved version with him and draft a profit-sharing contract under both their names. Surprised, Fermo suggests she could hire him for adjustments instead of co-development. Suspecting she's pitying his struggling workshop, he refuses the idea. The lady explains co-development involves both contributing ideas and creating a product together, and Dahlia offers to cover the costs for the first prototype. Fermo declines, insisting his workshop handle the manufacturing instead. Frustrated, Dahlia insists his name should be on the contract if they collaborate. Fermo argues fame and profits should go to the original inventor. Dahlia, feeling inexperienced, offers to register the product under his name. Angry, Fermo refuses to profit from something he didn't invent and rejects charity. Dahlia counters that his examination of the bottle likely inspired ideas for improvement and admires his passion and skill. Fermo finally agrees to collaborate on one condition. His name must be on the contract as a co-developer. They shake hands, sealing the deal. Later that night, Dahlia works on a necklace, successfully increasing its durability with magic. Wilfred arrives at her home unannounced and apologizes. He gives her a book on noble etiquette from his mother, thinking it might be helpful. Noticing Dahlia's injuries, a leg bruise, a facial mark, and a bandaged neck, he asks who hurt her. Dahlia explains she was injured while infusing magic into a skull artifact and assures him no one else was involved. Dahlia recounts that she was working on a bracelet infused with a skull fang, which has effects on wind magic. The infusion required a large amount of magical energy. During the process, her magic drained quickly, and when she transferred magic into the finished bracelet, it threw her to the ground. Wilfred insists she either drink a potion or visit the church immediately. Dahlia explains that she also created a necklace using a unicorn horn, which helped neutralize poisons, and assures him she's fine. Wilfred, still concerned, convinces her to drink the potion. Afterward, Dahlia apologizes for worrying him. Wilfred tells her to be more careful in the future. Wilfred asks about her plans for the bracelet. Dahlia says she will keep it, as adding any magic could be dangerous. Intrigued, Wilfred expresses interest in buying the bracelet to experiment with it. Dahlia gives the bracelet to Wilfred, asking him to take good care of it. Wilfred wonders if adding a blood bond to the bracelet could help him fly. Dahlia explains that the bracelet doesn't need external magical energy, and Wilfred asks her to activate the bond, offering to test its capabilities in return. While Dahlia hesitates to use him as a test subject, Wilfred insists, wanting to observe how enhancement magic interacts with the skull's fangs. Dahlia agrees and activates the bond by merging Wilfred's blood with the bracelet. Wilfred tests the bracelet outside, successfully flying and feeling stronger. Dahlia quickly asks him to stop before anyone notices. Wilfred lands and offers to buy the bracelet, but Dahlia says it's a token of gratitude for his support in helping her company succeed. Wilfred feels she's losing out, but agrees to repay her by promising not to perform dangerous experiments alone. He suggests registering him on her magical security system so he can help if anything happens. Dahlia agrees, registering him in the system, which alerts him in case of emergencies. This reassures her, knowing Wilfred could respond quickly if needed. While inside, Dahlia begins reading aloud from a book on noble etiquette, but Wilfred asks her to stop. Just then, Marcella arrives with a box of fresh oysters. Dahlia thanks him and brings the oysters inside. She asks Wilfred if he likes oysters, and he says he does. They decide to have dinner together, and Dahlia quickly prepares the food. The meal is delicious, and Wilfred jokes that it's so good he could eat the pan.
Even I make better jokes than Wilfred here.
That's a huge cap. They enjoy appetizers and a special juice gifted by Lady Alicia, the queen's sister. Wilfred laughs at how Dahlia sips like a squirrel and wishes for more of the drink, joking about buying brandy glasses once their company matters are settled. Dahlia mentions her upcoming meeting with Ivano to discuss future plans and expresses gratitude for working with Wilfred. She believes their first project, despite challenges, will help many people. She then asks if Wilfred's unit uses purification magic for their shoes. Wilfred explains that they avoid washing leather shoes since it takes too long to dry. Surprised, Dahlia suggests using a dryer. Wilfred notes that heat might damage the leather, so Dahlia adjusts the dryer to lower the temperature, ensuring the airflow is slightly warm to avoid harm. Wilfred asks if the airflow could reach the toes. Dahlia suggests adding a hose to the dryer with small holes along its length to distribute airflow evenly throughout the shoes. Wilfred loves the idea, and they begin designing it together. Dahlia and Wilfred successfully test the dryer, ensuring it keeps shoes undamaged. Wilfred tells Dahlia the dryer is a great invention that everyone could use. Dahlia advises him to use it carefully to prevent damage and to clean toes properly to avoid fungal infections. Wilfred notes these recommendations to share with others and mentions his prior knowledge of dryers, which delights Dahlia. She asks him to share more ideas and plans to discuss the dryer with Ivano for advice. The scene shifts to Ivano, where Dahlia presents her invention. Ivano thanks her for trusting him and assures her he will promote the dryer with all his resources, confident it will generate significant profits. When he asks how long it took to develop, Dahlia says it only took about 30 minutes, including safety checks. Ivano inquires about her future projects, and Dahlia lists several ideas: reducing the size of the magical stove, making lighter waterproof fabric, a refrigerator with a freezer, a magical clothes dryer, a cooking assist pot, and a home heater for winter. Ivano encourages her to leave production and sales arrangements to him, assuring her everything will be registered and sold efficiently. Dahlia also mentions concerns about creating magical weaponry, including a magical device infused with wind magic that has a blood bond and is usable only by Wilfred. Ivano reassures her that as long as the weapons are limited to specific users, there's no issue. He warns her about the risks of creating weapons that could significantly boost military power, as it might lead to unwanted attention or even kidnapping. Dahlia promises to be cautious, and Ivano gives her a copy of her oath sworn before the church to remind her of her responsibilities. He encourages her to feel free to create whatever she wants, promising his full support. Later, Dahlia meets Gabriella, who assures her that Ivano has reviewed everything thoroughly and that she can trust his timing and expertise. Dahlia expresses guilt about relying on others so much as a company president, but acknowledges it's too late to change now. She asks Gabriella to clear her parents' debt and promises to repay it, no matter how long it takes. Gabriella recalls Dahlia's father telling her to help Dahlia if she ever faced difficulties. Returning to the present, Gabriella assures Dahlia she no longer owes her anything and can repay her if she insists, but Gabriella will continue to support her regardless. Ivano enters and announces that Marquis Grat Bartoloni, leader of the monster suppression forces, has sent an envoy, Deputy Commander Griselda Lanza. The envoy conveys an invitation from the palace, requesting a verbal response. Dahlia agrees to the invitation, and Ivano notes the palace prefers tight schedules. Gabriella comments that the urgency indicates the palace wants to see Dahlia soon. She asks Ivano to escort Dahlia to the palace. The next day, Dahlia and Ivano prepare for their visit to the palace. Dahlia tells Ivano she will rely on him greatly, trusting his guidance. The next day, Dahlia, with Ivano as her attendant, prepares nervously for her visit to the capital. During the ride, she feels Ivano seems more like the head of Rossetti Company than she does. Ivano cheers her on, but she waves him off shyly. Upon arrival, she waits in a guest room until she's startled by a knock from Wilfred, who has come to escort her. Inside the carriage, Wilfred explains the invitation is from his captain, Marquis Grat Bartoloni, to thank her for the socks and insoles used by the soldiers. Dahlia feels relieved hearing it's a casual invitation. In the Monster Suppression Force meeting room, Dahlia exchanges greetings with Captain Bartoloni. Sitting nervously, she meets the soldiers who tested her products. They thank her for the socks and insoles, which have improved their campaigns. Dahlia expresses her gratitude for their detailed feedback, which helped her develop the products for large-scale production. She promises to send finished products as a token of appreciation, but offers the ones she brought for now. The soldiers cheer, feeling motivated for their next campaign. The captain then reads Dahlia's detailed list of methods to prevent foot fungus: washing thoroughly with soap, drying feet completely, and changing into clean shoes. When Dahlia explains that fungus can linger in shoes and shared spaces like floor mats or towels, the soldiers are shocked. They often wear the same shoes and share items. The captain immediately orders all floor mats and towels to be burned. Dahlia tries to stop him, explaining they only need proper washing and separate use, but he insists on eradicating the root of evil. A soldier jokingly suggests cutting off their feet and regenerating new ones at the church. Dahlia is horrified by their dramatic conclusions and repeatedly assures them following her list is enough. Wilfred, trying to empathize, assumes the detailed list comes from Dahlia's own experience with fungus. Embarrassed, Dahlia tries to clear the misunderstanding, but Wilfred doesn't grasp her denial. After Dahlia leaves, the captain scolds Wilfred, reminding him there are things you don't say to a woman, no matter how close gross you are. The soldiers tease Wolfred, warning him Dahlia will leave him if he continues behaving this way. They suggest apologizing with flowers and sweets. Shamefully, Wolfred admits he doesn't know her favorites. His squadmates recommend getting a bouquet with lots of red from a popular flower shop and choux à la crème. Dismissed early, Wolfred follows their advice. His squadmates laugh, noting they've never seen him so flustered. The captain remarks that first love hits harder the older you are, leaving stronger after effects. They all agree to never mention this again. Dahlia, relieved after the event, collapses onto her bed. Then the doorbell rings, and she finds Wolfred at the gate with flowers. Smiling, she lets him in. Presenting the bouquet, Wolfred apologizes deeply. Dahlia decides to forgive him, especially after he offers choux à la crème. They enjoy the treats together, and Wolfred asks about her favorite sweets and flowers.
Yeah, right. This only happens in movies, kids. Don't be fooled.
Yeah, I can't defend this one either. Luckily, Dahlia loves what he brought, especially cheesecake. For flowers, she likes all of them, but particularly roses and gardenias. Wolfred notices the bouquet and asks if she's named after the dahlia flower. She confirms her father chose the name, explaining that in another country, a single bloom is spelled Dahlia with a Y, while multiple blooms are spelled like her name. With her mother and father gone, now being all alone, Dahlia wonders if her name really suits her. After toasting with some white wine, Dahlia asks Wolfred if he ever drinks in the barracks. He explains that they do it often, and when everyone starts having fun, it often turns into a disaster. People start spilling their secrets, and no one present speaks a word of it to anyone else. That's the rule. It builds camaraderie and solidarity. The two decide to try this disaster here. The first person declares the disaster, while the listener places the palm of their dominant hand on the table or floor, symbolizing that if they speak the secret to outsiders, they can cut that hand off. With a coin toss, Dahlia is first. She speaks about how her mother went to her parents' home to give birth to her and never returned to Carlo. After Dahlia was born, her mother gave her to Carlo and married someone else. So Dahlia has never known her mother. Wolfred feels bad, like he forced Dahlia to tell him such a secret. But Dahlia accepts it, thinking it's better for him to hear it from her than someone else. Dahlia shares that her mother loved her father enough to push him into marrying her. She wonders if her birth somehow broke that spell of love, but Carlo never once spoke ill of her mother. When Dahlia was little, she only saw her father cry once. He had fallen asleep, slumped over his workbench. Beside him was a letter informing Carlo that Dahlia's mother had died of illness and that her funeral had already been held. The letter also contained the location of her grave. Dahlia was furious and considered ripping the letter up. She wondered if her father wanted to keep her from seeing him cry. She wondered if he cried in secret and if he still loved her mother. Dahlia has no memory of meeting her mother, but she supposedly has the same hair color, the same color as the woman who abandoned her father. Wolfred reassures Dahlia that she is her own person because children don't follow their parents forever. His words make her smile. Now it is Wolfred's turn. He shares that his mother was a knight who guarded a duke's wife. Perhaps because of her beauty and ice magic, she became his father's third wife. Apparently, due to Wolfred's lack of magic, his father took no interest in him, so he learned the sword from his mother and joined the monster suppression force. When he was 10, they were attacked by bandits. 20 people died, including his mother. She and the other knights protected his father's first wife, him, and his brother, ensuring their survival. After spending several days undergoing treatment at a church, Wolfred returned to find everything over. All of the second wife's relatives had died, and she herself had joined a convent in mourning. Losing his mother was painful, and interacting with people made it hard for him to survive. Not long ago, he learned that his older brother suffered even more than he did. He admits he never considered his brother's feelings before. Now, he is glad he learned the truth because otherwise, he would have gone on thinking he was the only one who suffered and kept running away. Wolfred shares that he wanted a magic sword because he felt weak. He couldn't use magic and believed a magic sword would grant him strength. He wanted the nightmares to stop, nightmares of his mother lying on the ground and his inability to save her. He never wanted to witness that again. But now, he wants to get stronger to surpass her, and that's why he wants a magic sword now. Dahlia feels a bond in the tales they share and becomes determined to help make him a sword that grants his wish. Wolfred thanks her and mentions wanting to visit his mother's grave. Dahlia admits she wants to visit her father's grave too. She then shares that she occasionally has nightmares where, despite people being nearby, she doesn't ask for help. Instead, she slumps over her desk and dies. Wolfred swears that the next time she has that nightmare, he will come to save her with everything he has. She wonders how he could possibly get into her dream, but appreciates the thought. In the dream, the last thing she sees is her desk. Face down against it, that's all she can see. That's why she has decided to live without hanging her head anymore. Wolfred feels her determination. He brings up how she mentioned her name doesn't suit her because a single flower is Dahlia with a Y, and multiple blooms are spelled Dahlia like her name. He feels that while she may feel alone, there are still people around her. He can't fully explain it, but believes her name suits her much more than she thinks. Dahlia greets Wolfred, who tells tells her it has been a while since his last visit. She asks about his recent journey, and Wolfred explains that a group of escaped monsters had been hunting sheep in a nearby village. Some children were injured during the hunt, but he assures her they have healed from the monster's magic. He adds that the bracelet Dahlia gave him helped him save the children when they fell from the sky. Dahlia feels relieved and suggests continuing their work on the magic sword prototype. They recall their earlier experiment with black slime, which created a short sword too dangerous to handle. This time, they decide to use yellow slime associated with earth magic. Wolfred explains that yellow slime can dissolve metal over time, but Dahlia points out that it loses this property when turned into powder. She advises Wolfred to wear a mask and gloves for safety. They mix yellow slime in water, with Wolfred stirring while Dahlia infuses the sword with magic. Afterward, they produce a sword, but Wolfred notices it is heavier, and the scabbard doesn't repel water. They decide the attempt wasn't successful and discuss trying other materials, such as single-horned horn powder, for future experiments. Wolfred reflects that their earlier attempts weren't entirely bad, as they successfully produced, assembled, and activated a sword. Dahlia suggests testing the yellow slime solution on the short sword they called the Demon King's sword. After immersing the sword in the solution and completing the process, they test it by placing meat on it. When the meat remains unaffected, Wolfred picks up the sword, finding it light and water repellent. They celebrate their success and plan to make a long sword next. Suddenly, the sword begins moving on its own, and Wolfred asks if magical devices can develop a spirit. Dahlia explains that myths suggest such things, but she doesn't believe them. Later, Dahlia shows Wolfred scales from a mirror snake known for deceiving the eye. A customer sent them as a thank you gift. Dahlia wonders if they might actually be from a rare rainbow snake, which is said to give visions of the future when used in magical devices. As Dahlia touches the scales, they melt and emit a bright light. She and Wolfred experience a vision where Dahlia is wearing a beautiful dress. Surrounded by people, Wolfred invites her to dance, and they happily dance together before returning to reality, confused about what happened. Dahlia thinks the scales might be from a rainbow snake, offering a glimpse of the future. Wolfred suggests the vision could show what's to come and offers to dance with her again, but Dahlia declines, calling it an illusion. That evening, Wolfred leaves the tower and goes home. The next morning, Dahlia meets Ivano and Gabriella. Gabriella asks about Dahlia's relationship with Wolfred and whether he has proposed.
Let's go, finally, what everyone has been waiting for.
Let's hope that the response won't be too generic.
Dahlia replies that their relationship is normal and that she isn't thinking about romance or marriage right now.
Never mind.
Gabriella advises her to consider accepting if Wolfred ever proposes, suggesting that it might be worth thinking about in the future. Gabriella then advises her that if Wolfred proposes, she should consider accepting. After Dahlia leaves, Ivano speaks with Gabriella about Wolfred. Ivano mentions that Wolfred, the Earl's son, has moved to town and wonders if he could propose to Dahlia. However, he acknowledges the difficulties as Wolfred's family might become marquises soon. This would bring jealousy and trouble, most of which would fall on the woman he marries. Ivano asks Gabriella if it would be possible for Wolfred to marry Dahlia if her company grew, she became an official palace supplier, or even a baroness. Gabriella says it might be possible in such a case. Ivano shares his vision of achieving these goals for the Rossetti company's future. The scene shifts to Dahlia meeting her friends at a tavern. Irma compliments her appearance, and Dahlia thanks her. Irma mentions that Marcella bought her dress, and Dahlia praises his taste. They sit down, and Dahlia thanks them for their support during her broken engagement and for being her guarantors. Irma says it wasn't a big deal, as their support helped Lucia gather funds for her workshop. Dahlia invites them to celebrate the Rossetti company's founding, Irma's beauty salon, and Lucia's workshop success. They enjoy food and drinks together. That night, Dahlia dreams of her father, who tells her he often created magical devices without feeling there was an end to his work. He believes Dahlia will achieve what he couldn't. Dahlia asks about one of his magical devices but wakes up before getting an answer. The next morning, Dahlia and Wolfred visit their parents' graves. Wolfred gives Dahlia a bouquet of flowers and they part ways to pay their respects. At his mother's grave, Wolfred says he misses her and imagines she would scold him. He shares that he has met someone he wants to protect but often causes her trouble. He hopes to protect her properly someday. Wolfred recalls his mother once asking what kind of knight he wanted to become. At the time, he misunderstood the question, thinking it referred to strength or fighting style. Now, he realizes he wants to be a knight who protects those he cares about. He admits this might not align with the ideal of a knight, but believes it's what matters most. At her father's grave, Dahlia tells him about founding the Rossetti Company and mentions Ivano's help. She shares how the five-toed socks and drying slippers, originally made for her father, have been well received. Reflecting on her father's habit of making people owe him favors, she says he acted nobly behind her back while appearing indifferent in front of her, which she finds unfair. She thanks him for his care and admits she wouldn't have become an artisan without his guidance. She declares her determination to surpass him, despite lacking his magical strength and skills. Dahlia feels grateful for her supportive friends and is no longer alone. Afterward, Dahlia and Wolfred meet. Wolfred asks where she's going, and Dahlia replies that she's heading to the trade guild. She adds that she can't bring something that might be considered a monster there. Wolfred Wilfred jokes that people might call it the crawling magic sword and believe they created such monsters.
That pretty much wraps up our story of a Prince Charming and a girl whose name resembles with a flower. I really hope you guys liked this video. If you did, leave it a thumbs up, and to stay updated with our future uploads, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and ring that notification bell icon.
And that was the ending. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. See you guys in the next one.
See you next time!